Sometimes the strongest cage in our lives are the ones we cannot see. Hello, I'm Jija, and this is Colorful Data. Today, while I paint this watercolor, I want to tell you a story about a woman, a bird, and a frame that slowly become a symbol of her life. For many years, she believed she was free. She followed the rules. She did what people expected. She walked the safe path. But deep inside, something felt quiet and small, like wings that had forgotten the sky. The bird she held in her hands looked calm inside its golden frame, but every time she looked at it, she felt the same question inside her heart. Was the bird protected or was it trapped? This painting is a story of the questions, a story about doubt, courage, and the quiet moment when someone finally decides to open the frame. So, while the color moves across the paper, let me tell you the story of a woman who slowly remembered how to be free. Sometimes freedom sits quietly in front of us, so close that we forget to see it. A woman stood in the water at the edge of the sea. The waves moved gently around her leg, touching the fabric of her dress, as if the ocean itself was whispering a secret. In her hand, she held a small golden frame. Inside the frame was a bird, a small blue bird, calm and silent, as if it had been there forever. The woman looked at it for a long, long time, not because it was beautiful, although it was, but because the bird reminded her of something she once felt long ago: freedom. When she was a child, she used to watch birds in the sky. They moved without permission, without a schedule, without fear of making mistake. They simply flew. Back then, she believed life would be the same for her. She thought the world would be open, wide, and full of possibilities. But as the years passed, life slowly built invisible frames around her: frames of rules, frames of expectation, frames of responsibility. None of them appeared suddenly. They came quietly, one after another. A rule here, a fear there, a voice saying, "You should be careful." Another voice saying, "This is not the right time." And slowly, without noticing, she began to live inside the frame, just like a bird. From the outside, everything looked normal. She worked, she smiled, she followed the path people expected from her, but inside something felt smaller every year. Like wings, folded for too long. Sometimes, when the words become too loud, she would close her eyes and imagine the sky, a very wide sky, blue one. She imagined flying far away from doubt, from limits, from the quiet fear of a disappointing of others. But every time she tried to move in a new direction, something pulled her back. A voice saying, "Maybe later." Another saying, "What if you fail?" So she stayed, not unhappy, but not free either. Years passed like soft waves on the surface of water. One day, something small happened. Not a big moment, not a dramatic event, just a quiet realization she was walking near the sea. The sky was wide and the wind carried the sound of birds across the horizon. For a moment, she stopped and she thought about the bird she carried inside her heart for so long. A bird that had waited patiently, a bird that had never forgotten how to fly. She realized something simple but powerful. The frame was never locked. She had only believed it was. The rules, the fears, the expectations, they were real. Yes, but the door of the frame had always been slightly open, waiting, waiting for the moment she would trust herself enough to push it. So she walked into the water. The sea was cool and calm. Each small wave felt like a step into a new beginning. In her hand, she held the frame one last time. The bird inside looked exactly the same as it always had, quiet, patient, ready. She smiled softly. And in that moment, she understood something many people forget. Freedom does not always arrive with noise. Something it begins with a single decision, a quiet decision, the kind that only your heart can hear. She opened the frame. The bird hesitated for only a second. Then its wings moved, slowly at first, then stronger, until it lifted into the air. The woman watched it rise above the water, higher and higher, toward the open sky. And as the bird disappeared into the distance, she felt something inside her change. The space that once felt small became wide again. Like the sky she remembered from childhood, the waves moved around her, reflecting color of the evening light. Blue, gold, violet, and in the moving water she saw something beautiful, the reflection of a bird flying free, not in the frame, not in a cage, but in the endless sky. She realized then that freedom was never something the world gives. Freedom is something we allowed ourselves to take, and sometimes all it takes is the courage to open the frame. And maybe this story is not only about one woman, maybe it's about anyone who has ever felt their wings folded by fear, by expectation, or by the quiet rules of everyday life. The woman in this story finally opened the frame and let the birds fly. And perhaps one day, in our own way, we will do the same. Because freedom does not always begin with the big changes. Sometimes it begins with a small moment of courage, a small step, A small decision, a small opening in the frame. And from that moment, the sky becomes possible again. Life sometimes plays frame around our dream, but the sky is always there, waiting, waiting, waiting. I hope this story of a woman, a bird, and a quiet moment by the sea reminds you that freedom is closer than we think. Sometimes all we need is the courage to open the frame. Thank you for painting this moment with me. I'm Jija, and this is Color for Data. See you soon.